Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean. This is my breakdown prediction video for the Deontay Wilder Luis Ortiz fight this Saturday night. This is a good fight. This is a fucking good fight. Been looking forward to this for a very long time. First time it was really talked about talked about seriously was when the Polish guy, I can't remember his name, Warzak, I think it might have been, got busted for steroids or something. Then Luis Ortiz offered to step in. That's when people really started talking about it. So yeah, I've been really looking forward to this for a long time. Wilder, it's well documented that he's had a long career and never really been in a fight that we particularly wanted to see. So this is the first time that I've seen him in a fight. Well, the Povetkin fight I was looking forward to as well. Obviously that didn't happen. We all know why. But this is the first time I've really been excited about a Deontay Wilder fight. In fact, actually, no. To be fair, I was quite excited about the Bermane Stavern fight. Not because I thought Stavern was that good, but it was a step up for Wilder, and it was definitely he was definitely better than the opponent he'd faced to that day. So that I was actually looking forward to as well. But this fight is the first fight that I've seen Wilder in that I don't really know who's going to win. Do you know what I mean? It's like a real 50-50. Deontay Wilder, although people say he hasn't fought anyone, and that's probably true, he hasn't fought any of the top people. But I'd say overall he's probably fought better competition than Luis Ortiz. I wouldn't say he's looked as good beating them though, but he's got more sort of solid wins than Luis Ortiz. I'd say Luis Ortiz has one win which is better than Bryant Jennings, but Wilder's got a few kind of half decent wins on his record. So he's probably got in professional experience, he's probably got an edge. He's obviously got better momentum. He's younger, quite a bit younger, bigger, quicker, harder puncher. He's taller. He's a lot quicker on his feet as well as with his hands. So he's got a lot of physical advantages into going into this fight. Luis Ortiz, on the other hand, is a lot more skillful, in my opinion. He's got a lot more ring savvy. He tends to dominate his fights a lot more impressively than Wilder does. He's a southpaw. He's got a lot more experience as an amateur. And he's got someone who's going to go in there and actually pose a threat to Wilder, which is going to be interesting. Because so far, I don't really remember anyone, like, with the exception, I suppose, the Stavern fight, people were saying that he was potentially a threat to Wilder. We didn't know if he could take a punch. But this is someone who is a real threat. So yeah, let me start by saying how I think Wilder should fight and how I think Ortiz should fight. They're going to win, and then I'll give my prediction on it. Okay, Wilder, in my opinion, needs to at least start off on the back foot. Luis Ortiz is a very good counter puncher. He's got much better timing than Wilder. He's got a much better judgment of distance, and he's very good at his little. He just takes a very quick little step back, and he can come right back into position with a counter. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a big version of Guillermo Rigondeaux, the way he can just keep his balance and just in and out of range, and he does it very well and times it very well with his counters. So he's better from what I've seen when you're moving on to him. Like if you see him when you're moving towards him. If you see him against Malik Scott, I mean Malik Scott was an extreme case because he was literally on his bike for the whole 12 rounds. But Luis Ortiz isn't quite as comfortable on the front foot. So I think Wilder, we've seen him do it before. We've seen him fight against Stavern, boxing on the back foot. He did it very well. It was the first time we've seen him do it. So, Wilder, he doesn't have good footwork, but he does have quick feet. And his height advantage means that he can, and he's got very good reflexes as well. So he can protect himself quite well with that kind of, well, I wouldn't really call it, well, it's kind of defence, isn't it? It's not like a textbook defence, but his speed and his reflexes and his height have so far managed to compensate for his lack of defence. Whether he'll be able to in this fight, I don't know, but I think he needs to try and draw Luis Ortiz onto him, try and frustrate him. He's got a good jab when he wants to use it, Wilder. You've got to think if the fight does go 12 rounds, him being much younger and, naturally, he's a bit small. He doesn't carry as much weight on him as Ortiz. He seems to He doesn't really have any excess weight on him, Wilder. So that's probably one of the reasons why he's had such good stamina so far. Also, he's not really a high volume fighter, Wilder. You know what I mean? He'll try and like set you up for that big right hand, give you like some good jabs if he needs to, but you got to think he's going to be trying to preserve energy, fight on the back foot, use that jab, try and walk Ortiz onto a big right hand. What he doesn't want to do is get on the inside with Ortiz, because Ortiz is very, very good on the inside, very good with uppercuts. He'll just slip, come back with a left uppercut, body work. He's quite physically quite big. I know Wilder is taller, but Ortiz is quite heavy. Do you know what I mean? If he's kind of putting that frame on you, working the body, getting you with uppercuts, we'll see what Wilder's stamina would be like if, actually getting hit a lot by someone. So I think that's what he needs to do. Not for the whole fight, but he doesn't want to come straight onto Ortiz. I think that's going to be playing into his hands. I think Ortiz, he's going to have to try to use all his timing and try and work Wilder's body, try and slow him down. He's got very good straight left hand counter down the middle, and he changes the levels up quite nicely, Luis Ortiz. So Deontay Wilder may be a bit unorthodox, and he's not the easiest person to read in terms of what he's going to do. But I think for someone of the experience of Luis Ortiz, I think he'll start to work him out. And you know what's coming. You know he's looking for that big right hand. So that's what Ortiz obviously needs to be aware of. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. Ortiz likes to block and parry quite a lot. He doesn't have particularly good head movement. So you think Wilder, he's got a lot more accuracy than people give him credit for. Now, one thing he doesn't do very well, he doesn't judge distance particularly well. So I think that gives people an idea that he doesn't have very good accuracy. But that's in terms of when they're kind of fighting and things are sort of moving about going back and forth, and he'll like kind of swing and come off balance with like big punches. But in terms of just that straight right or that jab, he's very, very accurate with it. So for a stationary target like Ortiz, I think he's gonna, that's gonna be dangerous for Ortiz. Those straight punches, he's obviously gonna be aware of them. He needs to sort of keep his head out of the centre, and kind of, he's got good footwork, Ortiz, so he needs to kind of use those angles well. Now, in terms of what I think is going to happen in the fight, it's very, very difficult to predict for me. I see this as a genuine 50-50. I give a lot of the physical advantages to Deontay Wilder, but I do give the skill advantages to Luis Ortiz. Also, how I think it will start off, I think Deontay Wilder, I'm not saying that he's necessarily scared to get hit, but he does fight a little bit cautiously. He doesn't really react that well to getting hit. You'll see him square his feet up, he'll kind of panic a little bit, he'll just sort of lean back with his chin in the air. He manages to get away with that because he's normally fighting people who don't have the same reach, who don't hit particularly hard, who aren't particularly skillful, and who are, rightfully like worried about what's coming back at them. So I don't know if this almost 40 fight career of never really being in a fight that he had a genuine chance of losing is going to come back and bite him on the arse in this one. Possibly it will, possibly it won't. But I see if Wilder's going to first start, trying to exchange a little bit with Ortiz, I think he's going to get countered. He's going to counter quite hard, and he's going to realise that it's quite difficult to defend himself against someone like Ortiz. I think that potentially cause him to go into his shell. You see him with Gerald Washington, he did that. He got hit with a few jabs and he realised that Washington was able to hit him and he couldn't just sort of tee off on him and then just sort of like lean back out the way like he quite often used to. So that made him cautious. Now he kind of used his head in that one because it made him cautious, but then he obviously came back, set him up for that big right hand. But Gerald Washington, I don't believe has anywhere near the sort of heart or the fighting spirit of Luis Ortiz. He's like an American footballer, got into boxing quite late, and he didn't really, he went out without a fight. I don't see Ortiz doing that. I see it just looking at him. I've never seen him knocked down. He looks pretty tough. Now we know Deontay Wilder hits very hard, but he doesn't look like the kind of bloke you could just blast out with one shot. I haven't seen any evidence of that. I don't know. people say like, oh, Wilder sort of knocks everyone out with one punch. I mean, he's knocked a couple of people out with one punch that I can remember. Spilka, and I remember I can't remember the bloke's name, like a sort of Russian sounding name. Generally, from what I see, he doesn't really just knock everyone out with one punch. I think that's slightly exaggerated. He does definitely hit hard, but I'd be surprised if he just blasts out Luis Ortiz. Now, Luis Ortiz, obviously, has been in the game for a long time. Nobody's really wanted to give him a chance. He's been quite avoided. I wouldn't say ducked necessarily, because he hasn't really been in a position for people to duck him, but certainly no one's been in a hurry to get in a ring with him. So this is an opportunity for him now. Hopefully, he's very, very hungry, and he's going to give it his all. I can see a number of scenarios. I can see if Wilder fights the right fight and he fights on the back foot, and he's very, very disciplined, I can see him winning on points, possibly even a late stoppage if Ortiz is just worn out. But I can also see Ortiz outboxing Deontay Wilder. I can see him early on just intimidating Wilder with his skill, his timing, and I see when Wilder starts trying to like throw punches and keeps getting countered quite hard, and then he realises that I'm getting hit back myself here. I'm not just able to hit this bloke, and so I could see Luis Ortiz winning the fight on points just from kind of lowering Deontay Wilder's output. Because the thing I like about Ortiz, like I said, that sort of Rigondeaux style where he can just sort of stand in front of you and basically sort of bounce back and forward. Do you know what I mean? With that little step back, times it, boom, and he's just sort of standing quite close to you, but you can't really hit him and he can hit you, and he's got very good balance with it. So I think that potentially could be too much for Wilder to deal with. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Wilder just sort of blasted him out in 4 rounds. Anything can happen. I mean, Wilder, I just said he's not knocking everyone out with one punch, but he still is very hard. If he gets you with a couple of hard punches, Luis Ortiz isn't used to being hit by people like that either. I mean, he hasn't fought anyone as good as Deontay Wilder, so we don't really know what's going to happen. Could Luis Ortiz stop Wilder? I mean, yeah, definitely he could. I mean, Wilder, we've seen him stop. Well, not stop. We've seen him rocked by people before. He doesn't look particularly sturdy. I'm not saying he's chinny, but he certainly doesn't look like he's particularly solid. He also gets very square on with his feet. I mean, he finds himself in some very, very dangerous positions. So far, he's been able to get away with that. I mean, you've seen him sort of fall over from throwing a punch. You see him literally standing there like completely square on, like a total novice. So, if he finds himself doing that against Ortiz, then yeah, there's definitely potential he could get knocked spark out in this, or just worn down. If Ortiz is getting in, thing with Ortiz, like you watch his fights, people say, oh, the Dave Allen fight, he didn't look very good. He's old now, he's past it. He looked very good in the Dave Allen fight. I watched that again before I made my early thoughts video. He basically controls the whole fight. Now Dave Allen is no Deontay Wilder, we know that, but Luis Ortiz just controls pretty much every fight he's in. Yes, he hasn't fought anyone like Deontay Wilder, but Deontay Wilder doesn't control the fights. You don't really see him dominate. You do sometimes, but generally, he's kind of having, relatively, like, to one extent, another tough fights with people who aren't really that good. So his style isn't really to sort of dominate the action. But it doesn't really matter if you're fighting someone who's not that good. If you're fighting someone like Luis Ortiz, who's basically big, strong, good will to win, very, very skillful, hard puncher, southpaw, and he's just sort of dominating the round. Let's see if Wilder can cope with that kind of pressure. I mean, it's a big test. It's a very, very big test for both of them. And yeah, I'm very, very happy to see it. Very happy to see Wilder in a big fight. Really see what he's made of and see how good he is. I don't make this pick with any real confidence, to be honest with you. I'd ideally just sit on the fence and say may the best man win, but I'm kind of leaning towards Luis Ortiz. I just think that his overall boxing skill and just his ring generalship are going to be too much for Wilder. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Wilder won, but That's what I'm going for. I think that Luis Ortiz is going to win. I think on points. If there's a stoppage, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I think Deontay Wilder is able to defend himself well enough. Although I said he doesn't have a good defence, I think he's quick enough on his feet. I think he's got good enough range and he's got good enough deterrent coming back that, and Ortiz isn't the fastest man in the world. He's not the best at like cutting the ring off and going on the front foot. So I think if Wilder comes in towards him, then yeah, he gets stopped. But I think really what I think is going to happen is that Wilder is going to be made to be a bit gun shy in this fight, and Ortiz is going to win on points. Yeah, that's what I think. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Cheers.